Hello, everyone, and welcome to the back half of round number one at the 19th Annual Fairhope Jubilee. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Dustin Mouret, and we're here for the action. We've got quite a cast, including, of course, Paige Pierce, Madison Walker, Tina Oakley, and also a little local action in Chloe, Alice, and then, of course, we've got Emelia Marshall joining us. And Dustin, we saw through the first front nine or so, everyone's, getting comfortable. It's a Saturday, or correction, it's a Sunday morning, fighting off the weather. Everyone's just kind of learning the course and learning their pace out there, aren't they?
Indeed they are, and we're still in the tough wooded stretch of this course, hole 10, a very tight corridor, but Chloe doesn't want anything with that and decides to go with the wide left forehand, a very rare play on this hole, but she has executed it to perfection. Hard to see it, of course, but I think she's right up there.
Looked like a good shot. Madison's finds that left side fairway, and not too bad of a kick. Things could get really off the rails and quite punishing if you miss your mark here.
Yeah, this is probably the tightest corridor yet as far as how punishing it can be if you don't nail your line. I would say the right side of the fairway is a little bit easier to navigate the scramble back, but if you're in the left side, then you are in a lot of trouble. But this is the short pin position, so it's a little bit easier to access. Next round, it will be about 80 feet back from where it is now.
And a little foreshadowing that in the next round, when it's pushed back, it's pretty much the same shot, just a longer distance. So
Correct.
It doesn't change things up too much. Here's Emmy.
Yeah, I would say I'd be surprised if Chloe still plays the forehand out left on the long pin position, because it gets a little bit trickier to approach in the long pin. But we'll see, as Tina electing to go for a higher speed disc, probably looking to play some type of low forward skip. I think that might be her hybrid trespass with her whale stamp on it. And that's really well done.
She looks disappointed with the low release, but guess what, Tina? You have a lot less work to do than a few of your card mates here who are off the mark. Here's Pierce with a patent pending stance.
I would have taken that shot my round for sure. Put it that way. And a little run there almost from Paige. Really good backhand turnover with that Fierce.
Oh, yeah, and she's barely been off the mark on a number of really long putts. I'm thinking some of these are going to start dropping in for her.
Yeah, you would think at some point it would finally trigger for her, because she's definitely, like you said, been on the mark several times. As Madison almost sticks one there. Had a tough little straddle from the shrubbery over there, but should be able to at least collect the par. We see Emmy here. Chance to get something going here as well. Again, a very new player to the field. This is only her 6th sanctioned event. Only been playing sanctioned events since 2021. Has that ultimate background. And cool to see someone who's kind of just getting into it. Actually doing pretty well here against some, stiff competition.
Yeah, only in our beautiful sport do you have someone who's been playing for about a year or two at a tournament, then on a given weekend steps up and gets to play with the likes of a 5-time world champ like Paige Pierce and other notable seasoned veterans like Madison Walker and Tina Oakley. It's a beautiful thing our sport sometimes offers. Well, except for the bogeys. Everything else is great.
Doubles and triples also will go in that thing. But it was also a really friendly card. Everyone was having a good time. Had a gallery as well following this card, as not every day you get to watch a 5-time world champion play in person. As well as, Madison Walker and Tina, who are also, very good competitors, particularly Madison, even though she kind of had some time off, I believe in 2020 it was, has, consistently kind of been that top 10, top 15 area as we move on to hole 11.
And there is a route here on this left-hand side. It seems like it'd be the path less traveled, but now we're seeing a forehand and now a backhand by Pierce.
Yeah, regular old Robert Frost there. bringing that turnover over with the Fierce, and looks really good. Nailed it. We'll sometimes see forehands played off that left side as well. The other option is just a low kind of skipping shot down the middle. But again, it can just get tricky if you get tangled up early. And it's a risk reward thing. You know, if you get past the initial gap on this left-hand route, it's a little bit more open to navigate.
Yeah, Madison and the rest of the card, Madison does not understand what everyone else is doing. She thinks their route is crazy. And then she opts for a forehand roller. Okay, so totally different approach.
Very different. And man, that's well executed, though. She gets down the tunnel, she gets the roll to the left, and she might have herself a look. So, I mean, I guess, you know, she want to do something even more unorthodox, and she was successful. As this is the unfortunate thing that can happen. If you get tangled up early, it gets to be a bit more of a minefield to navigate to try to get back up to the basket, as Chloe trying to push a forehand through and catches a tree, and she might be in for a big number if she's not careful.
Well, forehand pitch, also left with a tester. Here's Tina again from that circle 2 range.
Just a little left. Again, very close on a lot of these long putts. As we see the result of Madison's forehand roller, and as you can see, it put her in great position, but unfortunately the putt is a little too low, so she'll have to settle for par. As we see Chloe coming up here trying to salvage, I believe this would be a bogey.
1, 2. I think this one's going to be for par. If she can convert. What's my math is off. No one ever said I was too smart, Dustin. No one's accused me of being too smart, let me tell you.
I would never think anything less, but that is a bogey, Chief.
Oh, okay. Well, so I guess that solidifies that.
We still all love you, Terry. You're doing a great job doing other things besides math. That is always
I miss
the
a
thing.
shot. 1, 2. Oh, okay. Yeah.
See,
I
here's
totally
the thing.
missed a shot.
I come from the esports commentary world, of course. We've talked about that a little bit. And, you know, there's a lot of things that are different. You know, the pace, the subject matter, there's a lot. But the one thing that holds true is trying to do quick math on the fly as a commentator. It is always scary.
I think they tell you, there's a couple of local radio DJs that say they never do math on the air because you're only setting yourself up to look like an idiot. And I'm not afraid to do that. Even
if you do it right, no one takes notice because you should do it right. But if you do it wrong, you live it down.
Tina doesn't make the comebacker, so she's going to walk away with the bogey. Madison with the tap in after the forehand roller, and we'll have to see if she can do the same in round 2. I'd love to see that forehand roller even closer. Here's Pierce on hole 12, the high right side tree hit.
I know that tree very well, Terry. I hit that same tree both rounds with the same exact shot attempt.
What are you throwing it up there for?
I threw the same disc too, a Fierce, just a different plastic. So I really did try. But yeah, that tree, because you're trying to kind of hug the right side of the fairway a bit, so you get that gentle fade towards the center. You know, if you get to the green, it's pretty built up, so there's kind of a backstop. But again, it's just one of those narrow, tricky corridors that you have to navigate. And if you get caught up on something early, it gets really tough. You may also see a flex forehand sometimes. Players like to do that because they feel they can, you know, control the accuracy better by looking at the target the whole time. But yeah, usually a gentle backhand is kind of the play. And Madison did really well there. That's a great shot.
Different look to see the forehand approach coming out of Chloe here on this tee shot.
Yeah, she seems the favorite for this. And you can see she's going split finger, so trying to do something where she keeps a finger on the flight plate to have a little bit more touch on the disc. And, I mean, that's about as good as it gets. That was really well done.
Yeah, one final branch looked like it held her up from fighting back right at the pin, but still very makeable birdie look. Here's Pierce, who's got to do a little work of her own with a forehand.
Yeah, she forehands one of her putting Fierces, I think, and that was brilliant. Really nice touch there from Paige to get the approach. As we see Tina having to do a bit of a patent pending here from the wood line.
Quite effective. This is where Emmy's drive landed. So this is a birdie look, but not able to capitalize. That would have been 2 in a row for her.
Meanwhile, Madison, like we said, probably one of the best tee shots we saw, besides Chloe's forehand, which is also excellent. Has a chance here to get herself a birdie and drops it in. Really well done there for Madison. Again, newly sponsored by MVP, but was not at this tournament, so still throwing a bit of an open bag. As this is, a couple of weeks after the tournament now.
From short range is going to have to tap in for the bogey. She'll go to +4, and we're seeing outside of Tina here, very, very competitive scoring among the rest of the women. And Tina's still just a few off of the pace. It's not like she's being blown out or anything, but really competitive scores here about midway through the first round.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that, Paige is playing this first round blind as we see her, taking her par putt, but Tina and Madison, while they've both won this event in the past and played it, it's been a couple of years, so may not, remember everything, of course. And it's also worth noting that with the construction, as you saw a lot in the front nine, the course has changed a bit since they've probably last been here. So, they're still trying to kind of figure things out along the way.
Emmy taps in for the par. They're going to move over to hole number 13, of course. Prodigy, one of the major presenting sponsors here of the tournament, in addition to some great coverage sponsors. Here's Madison pushing up that right side, hugging it. Doesn't quite come all the way out, but she gets a good distance up the fairway.
It's still a pretty optimal play for this hole. A very tough uphill shot, and you see its teeth there for Chloe. As it's definitely going to play a little over 300 feet due to that uphill nature. And again, another very tight fairway to try to stay inside of. Really want to stay towards the right-hand side of the fairway if you're going to miss. If you're left, you are in a world of hurt. It's very hard to get back center after that. And, speak of the devil, that is a rough kick for Paige.
.295, probably plays a little closer to 310, maybe even 315. It's got a slight uphill incline.
Ooh, at least she dropped right. I think that'll still give her a chance to kind of approach the basket. The basket does sit kind of left of that batting cage you see ahead of you, which that batting cage does play as OB if you push that deep. There's also a bit of a baseball field fence to the left of the batting cage that can kind of be a bit of a backstop. As we're going to see if Tina can get through this, and that is very well executed up until just that little point right there. Oh, no.
You well executed her.
Yes,
something.
From the future.
Or instead of nicing her or something, yes. I don't know.
I did try not to use that word very particularly to avoid that. As Paige still kind of struggling to axe away at this one. Catches another tree here, but on that right-hand side might have something to look at. So now see Chloe with her second shot coming up now. She's right now tied with Paige, but could find a stroke on her here as we see a disc stuck in a tree here. And luckily in good old Alabama, Terry, there's no 2 meters to worry about. We keep it real around here, Terry.
You keep it real. Well, some of the traditionalists and old school players like myself, very used to having a 2 meter rule. And I know it's very regional, and it's also quite a hot topic among players. So leave that in the comments. I'd love to know, do you guys like the 2 meter rule when it's in effect? Meaning you get a penalty if you're above anything 6 feet, 6 inches or not. Let me know in the comments. That'll make you eligible to win if you're pro or against the 2 meter rule. And like you said, not in effect here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this debate because I feel like, we could go here forever. But I think in some situations it makes sense to stop people from doing things that weren't intended. But I feel like there's some times where it's a little bit harsh where, say that you're playing day law. There's a couple holes where you're forced to throw over trees, and it just feels a little I don't know, like a little bit random. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence.
All right, all right. I mean, if you don't throw into a tree, you don't get stuck in one. Is maybe a counter to that, but we'll have that debate another time as we see a great approach.
Very tricky spot here for Chloe, having to go with that Anheuser forehand, and gets around that tree. So did about as well as she could have hoped from that position. As we're finally up to Tina's shot, which even after the kick, still leaves her a good clean approach to the basket. It gets a little bit too turned over and catches a tree, and leaving her with another tester.
Okay, not a bad tree kick. Paige recognizing that. There's Tina again from long range. And that one looked off the mark right out of her hand, unfortunately. Madison, almost the exact same distance.
I believe this is her birdie putt, if I'm not mistaken. She had a great tee shot, but catches some of those branches and gets dropped down. Very tricky, because if you're off on that right-hand side, as you can see, you're contesting that low ceiling to try to get a putt off. We're going to see Emelia go for a bit of a stepper and almost drops it in. That was very close. Just not quite.
Chloe in for the bogey,
which I believe will give her the outright lead at this point. I think Paige is looking at a double at this point on this hole. We'll get confirmation here soon.
And rarely, good math there. Rarely can you say, hey, I bogeyed and I still took the lead. So that says a little something about hole 13 and the teeth that it has. We'll see what kind of adjustments this card makes for the second round. And, you know, I know we pointed it out. This is somewhat of a unique scenario in that it's 2 rounds in one day. That's not what Paige and Madison are typically accustomed to now. Of course, a relatively short course, you know, under 6,000 feet. So it's not that it's grueling, but, you know, that mental focus is going to be extended a little bit longer than what they're used to seeing, you know, a typical event. So here we are, hole 14. It's got an island on it.
Yes, and this is the short pin position on this hole, and this is a very tricky one, but Madison is going to nail that one. Between the dog park distractions and a ripping headwind that you couldn't really feel from the tee, it made this island very difficult to land on. Definitely made you think a little bit more. There is a drop zone if you hit the road. You can lay up short, though, if you want, by that red rope kind of area that you see. Again, as long as you're not in the road, you're not OB. So you could see some of that depending on the wind.
Yeah, and so Chloe's shot there is inbounds. This isn't a island or bust, you know, scenario, so to speak. Although Emmy says, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and park it. No problem. But Chloe's shot is short, so she's inbounds. And the same post, well, different post, same result over there for Tina. So she'll be inbounds.
Absolutely. See Paige stepping up here. That looks pretty good. This needs to sit down. If it goes too hard, it could skip in the road deep, but looks like she does stick the landing and will be in play. So no one actually goes OB off the tee here. Everyone still has a chance to at least get par. As we see Chloe pitch up a forehand, looks like it's in a good position.
Nearly identical opportunity here for Oakley. Flirts with that road, but then scoots on at the last second. So it's a tester, but she is inbounds and is looking at a par.
Yeah, that was
Pierce for birdie.
That was a tight rope. And man, that one looked like it was on one, but it's just gonna bounce out.
Yeah, and you're hearing the wind, so you got to wonder if that had anything that factored into it, because it looked really solid out of her hand, and Tina unfortunately not going to save the par.
Yeah, also this model of basket is one of those ones where you kind of have to be gentle with them. Power putts will bounce out. And with the wind, you kind of wanted to put a little bit more power to kind of maybe cut through some of that. And so it made it, tricky. It made every putt feel like you had to focus. Didn't seem like you had too many gimmies out there.
What a birdie. Walker goes to 1 under with picking that birdie up on 14.
Emmy also has a chance here to get a birdie after a brilliant tee shot. And she will indeed capitalize. So good play there. Keeps her at even.
Island complete. That is one of 3 holes that we'll see get pushed back in round number 2. Holes 8, 10, and 14 will all become just a little bit longer in the second round. We're seeing a headwind for Madison Walker on the most open hole on the course. Letter B. This is a typical temp hole. Is that a good way to phrase it?
Yeah, it's one of the tip holes that have been used in tournament past, so people will be familiar with it. But again, in this head crosswind and with the OB road being in play and all these bushes on the left, if you trickle down, it can be a very tricky hole. And while the distance says 250, considering the slope and what I measured, I feel like this is probably more in the 285 range.
That's going to be a birdie look. Pierce says, ooh, she doesn't like it out of her hand, and now you see why. It actually finds the road and doesn't come back in, just not the right angle for it. So she's going to be putting for a par save at best. Right. Tina right up the middle, keeping it low, and then getting a skip forward. Great shot, yeah.
Yeah, now this gives Chloe opportunity. Maybe get another stroke on Paige with her going OB here and building up a lead as best you can now when you know that Paige is coming for you. It's definitely a good move as Chloe did hit the fairway pretty well herself. As we see, I think this is Emelia in scramble mode and puts it up there. Really well done.
And this is a really good play. This is a little bit of a pro tip for everybody at home. If you're worried about the wind lifting your disc, especially throwing into a headwind like Chloe was faced with, sometimes people will drop to a knee, and then, that's just to keep their release lower and really force themselves to keep the shot lower so the wind doesn't pick it up and carry it away.
Yes, now we see Madison trying to scramble as she had pushed maybe a little bit deep of the basket. It was down left, kind of up against that big pole. So this is a very long putt for par that she's going to be faced with. And unfortunately gets just dropped down there. So, yeah, everyone kind of licking their wounds on this one. As it played so tough with this wind.
Yeah, you see the flags in the background just ripping, and Chloe's able to step up, punch in for the. It's funny how much those are not gimmies. Normally they would be. You could make 10 out of 10 with your eyes closed, but with this much wind, you actually have to pause just for a moment and make sure you really jam it in there. Walker for bogey.
Indeed, gets it. And I believe this is Tina for par. And she will drop it in. Well done.
There's that three, girl. Let's go. Par.
Eric is very excited about it. Tina on the other hand, finding something to trip herself up on. All right, double G jerky doesn't get much better than that. And that just might be part of the giveaway I've got in store for you guys when you like, share, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube things. Here's Emmy.
The bell, do that thing too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Notification. I'm such a bad YouTuber. I don't even know all the lingo here.
Yes, we're on hole 15, the second longest hole in the course, just at 350. Maybe plays a bit less than that due to the downhill slope, but in this win, once again, hole gets a lot more tricky. And if you can choose, you'd like to be more on the right-hand side of the fairway. to avoid the downhill death putt, as that disc got hammered down by the wind. But again, has probably a clean approach to the basket and isn't going to be faced with that downhill threat.
That is heading right. There is OB over there, but it does check up. So for being as off the mark as she was, I think she's going to actually have a really good angle at the approach, throwing slightly uphill as opposed to downhill.
Yeah, big headwind here. I think Paige is probably throwing a Raptor or something on this one. I recognize that disc, and yeah, fights through nicely. It's going to skip up left, and she probably has the best tee shot as far as distance of the card, but is going to have a downhill putt that's going to be quite scary. Oh, that was really well done from Tina.
And again, for being an errant drive, she's actually rewarded with a relatively simple approach shot that she could, you know, play uphill a little bit, maybe get it to flatten, try to take away some of the roll that you might find if it catches a root or something and you're throwing downhill. And that's a skillful shot there by Chloe. Same thing, just to try and get it to sit down. Pierce has a decision to make if she wants to run at it, and well, it's Paige Pierce, so of course she's running at it. I guess there's no decision really, if you think about it.
Saved by the number plate. That's probably another thing. These baskets sit a little bit lower than maybe what some of these players are used to. So I have to kind of take that into consideration. Step putt there from Emmy, and oh, that needs to not roll down the hill. It looks like it does check back up, so still a chance to get out of here without a big number. As Tina drills in the par putt. Really well done.
A little bit of work left here for Emmy. Right side corner pocket. Doesn't have to be pretty. Just has to be in.
And this is Chloe, I believe, for par after her forehand approach. And is going to be able to stick it. So going to maintain that lead over Paige. Paige taps in the par.
And Madison will tap in. We're moving on. Big shout out to Pastry Dyes, along with all the other supporters and sponsors you've seen in between the holes here. Here's going with a flex turnover. All right. I think the rest of the group wasn't necessarily expecting that.
Now, usually people are just going to go right up the middle. You know, that sidewalk is casual. It's only the road on the right-hand side that's OB. The fence kind of acts as a backstop as well for the basket, meaning that as long as you can keep it underneath these overhanging tree branches, you can kind of take a run. As long as you stay left of the basket, you will be protected by that fence. You do sometimes see people go out left with a forehand. But yeah, this is the more common play that we're seeing by pretty much a majority of our card.
Madison really proficient in throwing low line drives. So I feel like this hole sets up well for her.
Yeah, she crushed that one. Really well done. Tina, again, faced another really long putt here. She's been close multiple times. This time, it seemed like it was more of a layup, and she's done that well.
See how aggressive Emmy wants to be with this one. That's a stepper and good line. Just need a little bit more power.
Yeah, definitely cross right in front of the face of the basket. As we have Paige here left with this for a birdie. Probably just edge a circle. And oh man, that was really close. Maybe just a little left.
Little birdie action for Chloe up against the fence. She moves to 2 under par. And with Paige lining up for what will be a par herself, that means Chloe will have a 3-stroke advantage. Madison taps in.
And this is Tina for par, and she will indeed find the right side chains and lay it down. We're going to see Emmy kind of come up here and salvage par.
Now, a little pro tip, granted it's a very short putt. She could probably, make 100 of those with her eyes closed, but you do get a full meter. So even if you're not out of bounds, if you're up against an OB line, you can pull it 1 meter away from that line, even if that brings you closer to the basket in this case. So for what it's worth, if you want that little extra space, she actually could have taken another probably 24 inches or so toward the pin.
Right. And so we're now on the 225 hole A. And this is just kind of a stock hyzer shot, Terry. The only thing you really have to worry about, there was a pretty decent right to left wind on this hole. So if they expose that flight plate, it could carry left more than they want.
Laying the hyzer out and over, and that's going to be left side, probably faced with a headwind. I thought it earlier. I would not want to be left-handed, throwing a left-handed backhand shot here. Just a little bit of an awkward angle, and then, finding just the right amount of power, knowing that you're going to be with a right to left wind, as Tina right up next to the platform.
Dabbing on the haters. She walks on back to the crowd. I don't think there were any haters, though. I think she was just dabbing the dab because she was excited, because that was a great shot.
Dabbing's still a thing, right? Right?
No, it shouldn't be, really.
No?
But
Okay.
you know what? Tina can have it. She can get away with it. As a very awesome person in the disc golf community, has her hand in a lot of different things between whale sacks and media and playing, and definitely a really cool person. So you know what? If anybody's allowed the dab, it's Tina.
I take it as she's super busy, so she's just a little behind on a few of the trends. And so we'll go with that. Dab on them, Tina. You got it, girl.
And again, what also made this hole tricky is obviously the elevated basket mixed with the wind. And there was an OB row deep that no one did find here. Everyone's good to go. And also, if you went short, you can kind of see those orange flags on the left in the baseball field that would have put you in a drop zone. But everyone here able to get on the dance floor, as someone might say, another commentator that works in disc golf. And that person may be right here with me.
Yeah, that's a good old line I borrowed from a good friend, PDJ 2540, Johnny Rumble. He used that line probably 20 years ago, and I've picked it up ever since. Here's Emmy trying to pick up a birdie.
A little bit of a tailwind probably for her to kind of knock that disc down. You see Chloe here just looking to try to keep building this lead on Paige, and that now puts her 4 strokes ahead, I believe. As Tina, you can see right there is that disc just to the right of the basket, so she's going to have basically a tap-in birdie, but a couple of other players still have a little bit of work left to do to kind of try to finish off with at least a par here.
No problems for Emmy, and Paige is going to get into position to clean up. And I've mentioned it a few times, but so many supporters and sponsors to make not only the event happen, but also the additional coverage here that we're giving you. Flexline Pro, I collaborated with them so we could have both MPO and FPO card coverage. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And one of our sponsors being Flight Factory out of Florida. We're going to hear from them now. We'll be back in a moment. And of course, if you could borrow Heather Young for a tee shot on this course, I think this one's it, right? Hole 17. I mean, I'd take her arm on most shots, but hole 17 sets up left to right. You've got this driveway that kind of goes through the course, but this is playing as a river, so you can be safe and be on the left side.
Correct, as Tina's kind of testing that very theory, but does get off the road, so she is fine. And yeah, you can kind of go for the gap just past the bush line that you saw there, and that will definitely get you, inbounds with some type of forehand or backhand turnover. But if you want to push something a bit straighter, as maybe Paige is kind of talking to Madison about, there's kind of like a yellow turn sign that's up there, and that's kind of pin high. The issue with that is that, you risk pushing deep, and also there is kind of a group of trees you can see there next to that yellow sign that can kind of act as a wall to the basket, and you can even bounce off of that and go into the road. So you have to be pretty careful with how you navigate this fairway. It's all about speed control. That's a great forehand for Madison.
It is, and I think, and it actually gets up and skips a little bit and gets the roll. Paige was calling for it to skip off the road. Had it hit the road, I think it would have gotten even closer. But she's in birdie range, and what a beautiful turnover by Pierce.
Yeah, she works that Crystal Fierce really well. Almost like it's her disc or something. I don't know.
Yeah, she should design a... Oh, wait, never mind. Here's Emmy going with a forehand, which we haven't seen too much out of her, considering she's a ultimate player. Somewhat surprising to see her not throw more forehands.
Yeah, but that one kind of got away from her. Luckily, though, at least still in bounds. But, oh, no, catches that wall of trees we were talking about. So now even a tricky par putt ahead for her coming into this last hole of the first round. As you can see Tina here still in bounds. But again, very tricky to navigate through all this stuff. She tries to play out wide left to avoid the wall of trees and gets across, but maybe didn't get as right as she wanted.
Emmy to save the par. Oh, just hits the side of the cage, but unfortunately she's going to close out her first round with a bogey, and that will put her to +2 overall.
And despite a great shot from Madison, she got hung up on this wall, and there's a lot in her way that is very much alive and attached. So had to contend with quite the nuisances in front of her there, but she does at least set up for the par. As we see Chloe, I believe this is for birdie. She had a good tee shot in her own right.
Outstretched and cans it. Chloe in for the birdie. A 4-under effort to open. And that is so impressive. She's currently 5 ahead of Pierce, although Pierce has this little tap in that we get set up for. There it is. And man, Chloe with a 4-stroke advantage over the 5-time world champ. Granted, Paige had not seen the course. Paige has not been out practicing. She admits all of that, but not many women can say, yeah, I've bested Paige Pierce by 4 strokes in a single round. That's a very short list.
No, absolutely right. Gives her a little bit of cushion going in the second round, but you best believe that Paige, now with some more course knowledge and with her experience, is definitely going to be looking to run her down on the back half of this tournament, as we see Emmy tap in the bogey putt there. Still very much in contention in her own right. I mean, we can see the strokes are pretty tight through the middle of the pack of this card. So definitely still some chances for a lot of movement in the second round.
Well, I invite you back. I'm looking forward to having you. Thanks so much for joining us, Dustin. Thank you to the sponsors. And we see that right now we have the lead, Chloe, out in front by 4. We invite you all to join again, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you for round number 2 as we close out the Jubilee.